What's really interesting is if you just take a very 30,000-foot view and you say, let's just look at the broad strokes on the blue zone research, right? There's no continuity between diets in these blue zones. So it's not keto, paleo, pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, raw food, Atkins. It's whole food, just what you were just saying.
Whole food and a lot of healthy lifestyle.
Whole food, well, the two things that were non-interchangeable were sense of purpose and community and activity until later in life. So you didn't have any of the blue zones where people didn't feel a sense of purpose and community in life. In fact, there were no such things as assisted care living facilities. The assisted care in those countries as mom and dad moved back in with the kids until the day that they die. And there's a lot to be said for that because maybe grandma's only purpose is to go out and get vegetables for dinner that night, but she has a purpose.
And she's a part of the community.
And she's also
not locked up in a home with a bunch of people who don't really care about her.
Yeah. We knew something in the mortality space because I used to study mortality and mortality research. And we knew that if you wanted to cut somebody's life expectancy in half at any age, and I mean at any age, you put them in isolation. So as soon as you create isolation, you dramatically reduce, if not half, the life expectancy. Now, later in life, we would call this broken heart syndrome, caregiver syndrome, and these were actually very valid syndromes. So if we actually were doing the life expectancy on an elderly spouse who was still applying for insurance, or we were looking at what's called a second to die claim on life insurance policy, and one spouse had passed away, we would dramatically reduce the life expectancy of the second spouse. And the reason why that's important is I think that people don't realize that we are actually being isolated in plain sight, right? I mean, we are trying to create connection through our phones. We're trying to create connection through social media. And these are not human connections. In fact, if you look at the rates of depression, suicidal ideation, obesity, chronic mental illness, and I think we actually have a chronic lack of mental fitness, not necessarily a mental illness crisis in this country. And if you look at the skyrocketing rates of these conditions and how they are creeping into younger and younger and younger generations, you got 9-year-olds being treated for depression now. All right. So what's happening? What's happening is isolation in plain sight. We don't problem solve anymore. We don't have communities with our friends anymore. We actually don't build social connections. We've lost our connection to Mother Nature. That's why I like going out to my place in Colorado. It's probably like you like bow hunting. It's just nature. Old school connection to Mother Nature. And how freaking good do you feel? Yeah,
it's very, very good. I really wish I lived in nature. I'd really like to be living in the woods again.
I'm working on it, man. Well, you said you were trying to get something outside of town, like
I think that's the
ranch
move.
Kind of.
Yeah.